Hello friends, this is our third video in Terraform tutorial series, and these are the topics we are completely covering throughout this entire Terraform tutorial series. And this video will be like a Terraform core concepts, like how do we create Terraform resources, how do we create Terraform variables. There is a few priorities in order to create Terraform variables, and also finally we'll talk about the Terraform interpolations, which is nothing but how do we refer the dependent resources. Like there would be resources that will be dependent on other resources where we need to use the interpolation method. Also we'll talk about the Terraform outputs. Terraform outputs is like how do we display some values of a resources that will be known after applying the Terraform. So this topic will be considered as a Terraform core concepts. So this is very important topic in order to create or manage any infrastructure using Terraform. And already I have documented everything about this topic in my blog, that is lanatic8.net. So links related to this topic, including document, videos, everything will be mentioned in the description, so make use of it. And we have uploaded a lot of videos related to multiple technologies like Ansible, Jenkins, Kubernetes, Docker, and many more. If you are interested in learning, then please do subscribe now and click nearby bell icon so that you will get the notification of the new videos. So demo v1, this is the directory where I have created all the Terraform manifest files for the topics. So let me confirm my provider.tf where my provider is AWS and the target region would be US East 1. So if you see this iam.tf file, this file I have created dedicatedly for managing the user. That is why I mentioned iam.tf. Okay, and here if you see the resource section, I have two resource section where I have mentioned the usernames and the path. So this is a simple resource creation for the user. Similarly, if you take other resources, like if you want to create AWS EC2 instance, then we will create a resource for that purpose, where we need to define what AMI we have to use, what instance type, on which subnet we have to deploy the EC2, which key name we have to use, does the EC2 instance need any public IP address or not, and on which VPC should be deployed this EC2. So these are some of the parameters we would need when we create the AWS EC2 manually through AWS console. Likewise, we should have all these details in terms of creating resources, right? It is not only for the EC2. Similarly, if you create S3 bucket, then we would need what resources should be used for creating the S3. Also, we would need the S3 bucket name, region, and other parameters. So, if you want to create any resources like S3, EC2, EBS blocks, EFS file system, VPC, subnets, then we need to find the right resource type. I am already in AWS EC2. Now if you see on the left side panel, all these are resources. For example, if you want to create only EC2, there will be a resource. If you want to create Spark request instances, there will be a resource. And if you want to create volumes, snapshots, security groups, elastic IPs, load balancer, for all, we have a Terraform resources. So let's take an example that we want to create a EC2 instance. We'll start with EC2 creation, then we'll go for S3 bucket creations. Okay, so first go to Terraform Registry official website. Even if you search in the Google, it will take you to this page, and I'm already into AWS provider. And go to documentation, and on the left side you will have all the supported services. So we need to go to the respective services that you want to create or manage, and we need to find the resources that will suit for our task. Okay, if we scroll down, see there is a EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud, okay, where you can see all the resources. Or you can directly search using some patterns. But if you search using the pattern, for example, if I use EC2, the pattern EC2 wherever it is there, it will list all the services and resources. So it's up to us. Either you search using some pattern or directly scroll down to the respective services and find the resources. So let me go to EC2. Okay, expand it. Here if you see, all the resources will be listed over here. That is supported by Terraform at the moment. Generally the resource names would be the target infrastructure underscore and the resource name. If you see, as we are managing AWS and we are already inside the AWS provider, it is the resource names are AWS underscore and the resource name like AMI copy, AMI from instance, EC2, right? It is not always will be like the prefix will be the cloud provider. That is based on the name availability, alright? Mostly the prefix would be the cloud provider. So now we need to find the right resources. Our task is to create a AWS instance. So we need to find something related to AWS EC2, AWS instance, something like that. If you see more resources are similar, then please go through all the resources and read the document and find which is suitable for us. If you are a beginner, let's say, if you see these resources, AWS EC2 underscore host, it looks also like a instance creations, right? So just open a new tab. Also, if you see the AWS EC2 instance state, okay, this is just a state like power off, power on, those things. We can ignore it. If you take the other one, AWS underscore instance, this looks like managing the instance. So we can open it as well. So open all the resources that looks like related to our task. Okay, even the AWS underscore AMI from instance, that also looks like creating an instance from AMI. Okay, so you can open it as well and go through each resources. The resources AWS underscore EC2 underscore host provides an EC2 host resources. This allows dedicated host to be allocated. Okay, which means if you use this resource, this will create a dedicated host. If you have a knowledge on AWS, there are multiple hosts, right? On-demand host, dedicated host, reserved host, right? So now we are going to create an on-demand host. So on that case, this resource will not be suitable for us. So this is how we need to go through each resources, understand what is the purpose of the resource and select the right one. If you see the other one, AWS underscore instance, it doesn't have the pattern like EC2 or something, but they have mentioned AWS underscore instance. If you see the description, it provides an EC2 instance resource. This allows instances to be created, updated and deleted. So this is the right resources to create EC2 instance. But it is always not necessary that they will use the exact name in the resource name. So they will create the resource name based on the name availability. If you see the other one, AWS underscore AMI from instance. So on AWS, we can create the instance from AMI itself. So in that case only you can use directly these resources. So let me close the other one and I will use only the AWS underscore instance. So this is how we choose the right resources for our task. If you keep on creating resources like this, then you will have more understanding what resources I should use for my task. Alright. Let's take an example. If you see this basic example, they have different sections like data section. This is data source. Okay, just ignore it. As you are a beginner, no need to get confused with data source and all. Okay, I will give you a small glance on this. Here they are filtering the AMI ID from a value. Ubuntu Jammy 22.04 and using this value, they are filtering the right AMI ID from AWS catalog. Okay. Then they are referring that AMI ID in the resource section using the interpolation method. So this is a quick overview of this example. Take this resource example first. Okay. This is how the resource section would be. Resource, then resource name, then unique Terraform ID. Okay. Then they have defined further parameters. So let's just copy this simply and on my Visual Studio Code, So I have a Terraform manifest for IAM. So I will create one more dedicated file to manage my EC2 called ec2.tf and simply paste the resource section that you have copied. Here they have mentioned only AMI and instance type. Even we have more parameters, right? When you create EC2 instance manually, like we have to select subnet IDs, VPCs, security groups, key names, public IP address and all. They have not mentioned anything here. We will improvise the section from here. So if you go to the Terraform resource page, they will give you all the options available for these resources. Okay. So we have to find the right one. Just go through all these ones. If you see this argument reference, these are the arguments will be supported. AMI, associate public IP address and all. Okay. AMI already they have mentioned. And associate public IP address. Yes. If your EC2 instance is deployed on a public subnet, then we have to enable this associate public IP address. So you will get one public IP address through which you can connect your EC2 instance. Let's create it from the scratch. Okay. So first we need to find the AMI. If you are not sure about your AMI ID, just click on AMI catalog and find the AMI ID, or click on launch instance once simply to identify the AMI ID. Okay. So click on launch instance and which operating system you want. Just select that. I will use Ubuntu, and on Ubuntu I will use 24. So if you select the 24, see, this is the AMI ID. Okay, simply copy the AMI ID and paste it over here. Just remove this value and within double quote we have to paste it. Then on instance type. So I'll be using T2 micro because that is a free tier, and then the next would be subnet ID, because we have to define a subnet ID where this EC2 should be deployed. So go back to AWS and go to the VPC and find the subnet that you want to deploy. And you can close the launch instance now. Okay, now if you go to VPC, I have one VPC called my demo VPC. And if you go to subnets, I have few subnets, public subnet and private subnet. As I want to deploy my EC2 on public subnet, I will copy the exact subnet ID of public subnet and I will paste it in the resource section. But here they have not specified any keys to manage my subnet ID. So if you type something like subnet underscore ID or subnet, as I use Visual Studio Code, it has the autocomplete feature, so it will suggest you the resources. Or you can go to the Terraform Registry and search for the relevant word and go through the all parameters. See, we have the subnet underscore ID. So this is the one I have used. So subnet ID equal to, within double quote, you can use the subnet. So we have used the subnet. Now what else we need? Then we need keeper. Again go to AWS instance. Go to keepers. I have lot of keepers. So select the one you want to use it. I will use this keeper. Demo v1. The key would be search for the key or SSH. Yeah, okay. Key name is available. Within the double quote, I will use the exact keeper. If you want to verify that key, again go back to Terraform Registry and verify the parameter. Is it exist or not? This is done. What else we need? Public IP address. So associate public IP address. This is a Boolean type. So here we have to use either true or false. If you use true, then public IP address will be enabled. Then security group. Simply type security or something related to it. It will suggest you the keys. Okay, I have one security groups. So within square bracket, you can use multiple security groups with comma as a list. Also, we have one more keys that also will support this security group. That is called VPC security groups ID. If I use the first one, whenever I do a Terraform apply, that will keep on create new resources. If the resources already exist on the AWS EC2, that should refresh the resources. Only if the resources not exist, then only it has to create the resources, right? But if I use the first key that will recreate the resources. But the second one, VPC underscore security group IDs, this will not recreate the resources. This will create the resource only if the resource is not exist actually. So this is the right key to use it. Okay, let's use the first one and we'll troubleshoot the issue from there. Okay, and go to security groups. Already I have a security group called defaults SCG, and the inbound I have already mentioned my IP address only to be allowed. So I'll be using this ID. Just copy this ID within the security group list, just paste it. So almost we have added all the required parameters for creating the EC2. We'll apply this Terraform and we'll troubleshoot from there. And one more section we have inside this resource section, that is tags. This will be used only to define the tags in key value pair. Okay, like if you create any resources on AWS, there will be a tags tab. Here you can see key values, right? Name, environment, anything if you want to refer, you can use a tag section. The same name would be displayed over here, right? So for that purpose only they have this feature. Here they have mentioned name equal to hello world. If I apply this Terraform, the EC2 will be created in the name called hello world. So I will change this to web1. So let's do a Terraform plan. First, to understand, to validate and find the resources that will be impacted on the target infrastructure. Here if you see 3 to add. So what are the 3 resources? Like on IAM I have mentioned 2 user resources and 1 EC2 instance that will be created as a web. If you see this reference name, I have mentioned only web. Sometimes we will create more number of instances. On that case, better you use some unique ID. Okay, so I will change this to web1. If I create another resources like web2, it will be easy for Terraform to track, as well as it will be easy for us to maintain the code. Let's apply the change, and it is prompting me to confirm it. Let's give yes. If you want to override this prompt, you can use the flag called auto approve. Already we have seen this in the previous topics. So it is creating now. So parallelly you can go to instance and see the status. So there is an instance created called web1. It is in running state and instance type is T2 micro. So the instance is created as we expected, as we have defined in the Terraform manifest file. If you select this EC2, that will show you the public IP address. This instance is already in running state, so we will be able to access it if your security group is allowed. So just copy this public IP address and open your putty or any other session manager. Enter the public IP and go to SSH. As we have defined our key pair as a demo v1 to use. So we have to use the key in order to access the EC2 instance. So go to auth, under credential, we have to use the private key. Click on browse and select your private key of your demo v1. These are basics of AWS. Okay, it is prompting me to enter the username and password, which means the network connection between your machine to AWS EC2 is successful. Now this is asking for the authentication. So as we use the Ubuntu flavor operating system, so the default username would be Ubuntu. So I'm able to log in into my EC2 instance, which means, so from here further you can configure your servers. This is our request, right, to create EC2 instance. So we have find the right resources, we have defined all the required parameters, and we have created it using the Terraform. Similarly, if you want to create any other resources like S3, then we have to find the right resources. Let's see that. So again, go back to Terraform Registry. Let's close unused other tabs. Go to Terraform Registry and search for S3, and here under S3 service, simple storage, here you can find the resources. So S3 bucket. So find the suitable resources, open a new tab and read all the descriptions and select the right one. Here is a resource section. Just copy this. Okay, this is a EC2 manifest. Let me create the other one dedicatedly for S3 management. So s3.tf and change and add any parameters from here. Okay, so resource AWS S3 Bucket, and for unique name I will use my S3, some unique name. Okay, my S3, then bucket name, and this is a tags. So on name you can use the same name, and if you want multiple tags you can just simply use the key equal to value format to define other tags like environment equal to dev or personal or something. So this is simply other resources for S3. Alright, let me apply the Terraform again. If you see this Terraform apply status, my web one is destroying and recreating it. Okay, this is because of the security group that we have used during the AWS EC2 resource creation. But in real time, this is not right. Okay, if the resource already exists, it should not recreate it. Okay, it should refresh it. So this is why I suggested to use the next one. So I have identified this issue during my practices. So let's change this security group to VPC underscore security group IDs. Okay, I have changed the security group name. At the same time, I have got an error while applying the Terraform, right? That is related to S3 bucket. Similarly, when you create this kind of high level infrastructure, we will create resource one by one and we'll apply it. From there, if you see any other issues, we have to troubleshoot it. Let's fix this issue. Let's go to S3. S3 is a global resources. The name should be unique in worldwide. Okay, it's purely a name availability. So use something unique one based on your project name or IDs or something. I will use something like my unique bucket name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Even if you have not specified that bucket equal to some bucket name, the AWS itself will create a random bucket ID. Let me command this bucket and let me apply it. Provide the confirmation yes. It is creating the bucket. It's done. So this is how we have to choose the right parameters as well. If you want, use it. If not, ignore it. Go to AWS S3 and refresh the page. I have already existing bucket, that is the old one, but the newly created bucket is Terraform - some random ID. If you see the other resources, we have created two resources, right? EC2 and S3. Let's check the EC2 as well. We have changed the security group to VPC security group IDs. Now it has web one that is running. The other terminator resources are because of the old parameter we have used. That is keep on recreated by deleting the old one. Okay, let me again apply the code without changing anything. If you see the instance, it is just refreshing the state. That is why I use the VPC underscore security group IDs. Even if you refresh, it will not have any impact as the resources already exist as per the code. If you want to choose the bucket name rather than it is automatically created by AWS end, we have to use the field called bucket. Okay, just copy this again, add one more S3. Here just change the ID to my new S3 and bucket, let it be the default one. I don't think the name will be available, so I will give -1. Let the tags will be same. Apply it. Okay, it is applied. Just go to S3 and refresh the page. Yeah, it is created. So this bucket name is available. So this is why we use that field called bucket. If you are not specified the bucket name, that will be created the random bucket name. So better use some unique naming standard, like start with some project name, environment name or something like that. So this is how we create resources one by one to high level infrastructure. Okay. And if you see any other issues or parameters, from there you have to improvise it. The next one is variables. So variable is very important. We define the variable in one place and we refer that variable in multiple places. If you have the same value in multiple places and if you want to change it in some time, it is not easy to go and change everywhere. You may have the values in multiple files. So it is not easy to maintain it. That is why we use this kind of variables. So we will use a variable in one place with key value and we refer that variable name in manifest files. For example, let's say I want to create multiple instances. Here I have only one EC2 instance, that is web1. Okay, let me create one more resource. Just simply copy the resource and paste it and change the values as per the request. If you see, the first one is for web1, the second resource is for web2. Okay, but since I have the same name, it will not create. So let's change this to web2. Now this resource will be created as a web2. But if you see, in both the places, my AMI ID is same, instance type is same, subnet, key name. Likewise, we will have more same values. So we have to use it in a smart way. Like how do we use these kind of things in a variables? Okay. So it will be easy to change in one place in future if you want. So if you want to create a Terraform variables also has a section. Like how do we have a resource section? How do we have a provider section? Similarly, for variables also we have a variable section. Let me create a dedicated file for variables. So if you want to change any variables, directly you can come to this file and make the changes. So I'll use terraform.tfvars. So tfvars is a Terraform variable file. Okay. So extension is very important here. Okay, here we need to use key equal to variable format. For example, you can use some name, variable name like my AMI equal to my AMI ID. Just copy these AMI ID and paste it in the value. Okay. So here the key name is my AMI and value is the AMI ID. Similarly, you can create multiple variables. EC2 type equal to T2 micro. So this is how we create Terraform variables. Variables are used to define a key value pair. So that will make our codes more flexible and reusable. So once variable is defined, we can refer this variable many times in all Terraform manifest files wherever we want. Okay. So for example, if I want to create 10 AWS EC2 instance with multiple resource section, we can use this variables in all the resources. Okay. In future, if you want to change AMI ID or EC2 instances, you don't want to go and change in all the resource section. Simply you can come to this variable section area and simply change it. This is how it is more flexible for us to use it. We have a different ways to create a Terraform variables. This is the variable priority. So the first priority is command line flags. But see, I have defined the variable in a Terraform manifest file called terraform.tfvars. But still, I can use a command line flag during Terraform apply. Like Terraform apply -var equal to my key equal to value. For example, region equal to US West 2. For example, instance type equal to T2 micro. So that is how I can override my variables. If you use command line flags, doesn't matter even if you have mentioned your variable in Terraform manifest file, the variable will be overwritten. So we have to understand this priority. So we can pass Terraform variables while running the Terraform commands itself. So this is the high priority variable definition. The next priority is environment variables. Okay. So we can set a values for variables using environment variables like export space key equal to value. But on the key, you have to use the prefix called tf_var_. Okay. then only if you have more environment variable in your operating system. For example, if you take Linux, you will have already existing variables, lot of variables. So we should not have any conflict with that between Terraform variables and other variables. That is why they follow the standard like tf to have the prefix tf underscore var underscore then key. Okay, so this is how we can define the variables using environment variables. If you use Windows, you can use set command, or if you use Linux, you can use export command. The next priority is Terraform Variables file. Okay, that is .tfvars. So this is the third priority. If you are not using command line flags, environment variables, then the variable mentioned in the .tfvars will be considered as the actual variable value. We have already created this .tfvars, okay, and we have defined the few variables. If we have not defined any variables in these three methods, then your Terraform will look for a section called variable in all Terraform manifest file. In order to create the variable section, we have to use this format. Okay, so now we have used the tfvars method. So we have defined the variable in key equal to value format. Similarly, I will create a variable section in a manifest file. So why do we combine both Terraform variable? Means I will have multiple choices to select my variables. Okay, I will show you the demo. We will define the same variable in both the files. One is with variable section and other one is on tfvar file. If you have a 10 variables, then you have to create 10 variable section. That will have more information like description, its type, and the value. That is a default. So now the priority. So I have used .tfvars, also variable section. If you are not using any variables, finally that will take the default value mentioned in the variable section. So let me create one more file, variable.tf, just to define all variable section. Okay, so variable double quote and curling braces. That is a simple variable section. I will give some name. This is the key value actually. Within the curling braces, you can give your fields. If not, you can simply leave it. Okay, just to create a dummy variable section. Type equal to string, default equal to t2.micro. But in tfvars, I will change my EC2 type to t3 micro. Verify the variable name, it should be exactly match. Okay, if not, there is no use in creating the Terraform variables. So here I have mentioned my instance type, there I have used EC2 type. Okay, I will use my instance type in both the places. Also verify the my AMI. The my AMI, this variable I have mentioned only in .tfvars, not in variable section. So please focus on this to understand the priority. Simply, we can create a variable section and simply refer and we can use it. But you should have a proper understanding of the variable priority. We have defined the variables. Now we have to call these variables in your Terraform manifest file. So how do we call the variables in Terraform manifest file? That is where we have the interpolation model. Interpolation is nothing but if you are referring a value from other resources, then we have to call the complete resource name dot key name dot the value, something like that. Okay, with dots in between each fields. For example, if you want to change here, okay, var is nothing but variable. Okay, var dot then variable name. If you see, if I just type var dot, it is just listing my variable that has a resource section. It is not showing the other variable my AMI because that is mentioned only on tfvars, but it doesn't have any variable section. So actually, for every variable you define or create, it should have a variable section. Then only that will be considered as a valid. Okay, so var dot in the sense it is referring some variables. So that variable should have a variable section. var dot the key name, my instance type. Similarly, I copy this variable and paste it in the other resources wherever you want this instance type. So even if you have a 10 or 15 resources, simply you can manage your instance type from variable. If you want to change, simply come to your variable section and change the type to something else. Okay, let's apply this. See, if you see this web2, it is creating because after we added the resource, this is the first time we are applying it again. That is why it is creating the second resource. If you see the web1, it is modifying. Okay, now go to EC2, refresh the page. Now you should see two instances, web1 and web2. Okay, two running instances, web1 and web2. Okay, I have not changed the name in the tags. That is why it is showing web1. Okay, we'll change it. Next time when I do apply, the name will be changed. Alright, if you see the field, even I have used t2 micro in my variable section, it has taken t3.micro. That is because it has overridden the value of least priority. That is, the variable section is the last priority. That is a default value if you are not have the other high priorities. Okay. The third priority is tfvar file, where we have already defined the my instance type, that is t3.micro. That is why the default value t2 micro is overridden with this t3.micro. This is why the variable priority is more important. Let's create one more variable called key underscore name, and let's use this demo v1. On EC2, var dot, it is not suggesting because it doesn't have any variable section. Okay, simply I am trying to give the variable name over here, then see what happens. Var dot key underscore name. Even it is showing in the red line, that is because of the alert. If you see the error, it is saying that it doesn't have any variable block, that is variable section. So that is why we suggest combine both .tfvars and variable section. Okay, on variable section use default values for safer side, and on the tfvars it will be easy for you to simply in single line with key equal to value you can manage all your variables. Like how do we use variables in shell scripting, Python and other programming language. Okay, so simply create a dummy resource line. Okay, let me use command line flags terraform apply -var equal to key underscore name equal to demo v1. See, this feature also not supporting. Again, it is saying that it need a variable section. Okay, that is why I suggested any variable, if you are referring in your Terraform manifest file, that should have a variable section. At least you should have create a dummy variable section for the resource. Let me remove all variables that is not needed. Okay, let me revert back all the changes. Okay. Okay, the next topic is outputs. So output is nothing but while applying the Terraform, many resources will not be known to the Terraform. That will be available only after applying on the target infrastructure. On that case, you have to log into the target infrastructure and find the resource values. For example, you have created the EC2 instance, and if you want to know the public IP associated to the EC2 instance, you have to get it from the AWS console. So it is not like every time you have to log into the console and get the details. Using these Terraform outputs, we can get the values directly on the terminal itself where you apply the Terraform. Okay, that is why we use Terraform outputs. So Terraform outputs also, we have a section block. Like how do we have a resource block, variable block, provider block? So this is output block. Okay, simply create output space some name, because the value will be assigned to this name. It is like a variable. Okay, my web1 public IP and value equal to, we don't know this value, right? So how do we get this value? So what you have to do is, here we can use again an interpolation model. Okay, for example, if you want to see the public IP of web1, you have to go to the resource section, and from there you have to use the interpolation model. For example, so AWS instance, then web1. So we have to use AWS instance dot the specific ID dot then the field. Just command this for now. Let's run Terraform plan. If you see the resources, there is interpolation. AWS underscore IAM user, that is a resource name, dot, then specific ID of Terraform, right? User 2, user 1 and all. Okay, we can use this format for output. And if you see, every resource has its ID, unique ID. Okay, if you take this instance ID, this is also known after apply. Okay, if you want to see this instance ID on the terminal itself, then we have to call the ID. If you want to see the IP, we have to find the right value. Okay, here you follow the interpolation model. AWS instance, the resource name dot the resource ID, the unique ID what we have used in the statement, then dot the actual key. Here I will use public underscore IP. So how did I find this value? I'm not using ID. I'm using public underscore IP. But the public underscore IP is not used anywhere. How did I get this public underscore IP field? Means whenever we create a Terraform apply, that will create a Terraform state file where Terraform will maintain all the resources, correct? So the Terraform state file will have all the metadata of your resources. If you go to Terraform state file, go through this. For every resources, we will have more information. See, this is the web1. Under this web1, you have lot of information. CPUs, memories, ID. If you want to refer ID, you can use the field ID. And here if you see private IP, public IP, this is the key value I have used over output section. Okay, let me copy this output section and let's get the instance ID of web2. Similarly, you have to change the value, okay, based on interpolation. So it has to go to the resource called AWS instance.web2, then ID. Okay, now this is not a string, okay. So as this is a interpolation, you should not use strings. Okay, so remove the double quote. Let's apply. If you see after applying all the changes under outputs, it is giving me the public IP of web1 and instance ID of web2. So I don't want to log into AWS console to get my IP and login. Okay, simply I can copy this IP. From here I can do anything I want. This is why we use output section. So in this topic, we have completely covered the Terraform core concepts that is required to create a high level infrastructure. Without Terraform resources, without Terraform variables, without Terraform interpolation, there is no high level infrastructure. Next topic, we are going to create a complete AWS cloud infrastructure, that is VPC, using Terraform. So VPC is not a single resource, it has lot of dependent resources like VPC, subnets. Subnets itself will have more subnets, public subnets, multiple private subnets, then security groups, NACLs, internet gateways, NAT gateways. Then we have to deploy the EC2 inside the subnets. So it is a complete high level infrastructure that we are going to create in the next topic using this Terraform core concepts. So keep practicing and have fun.
How did you feel? Is it helpful? Appreciate our efforts in the comment section below. Hit like button, share with your friends about us, subscribe our channel to get further updates. Stay connected with us on social networking sites. For more free tutorials, visit our website www.lanetguide.net.